Hi, this is Autohouse Hamilton TV and I'm James. Some assembly required. Cylinders are a bit like girlfriends. Having one is relatively straightforward. As soon as you have more than one, you need to prevent them from causing trouble with one another. More relationship advice coming up after the title sequence. The familiar ways of arranging engine cylinders are inline or straight, V and flat. Thank you very much for watching. Oh, hang on, there's more. Inline is kinda sensible. Start with one cylinder and as you add cylinders, just place them next to one another. The obvious problem with inline engines is that they are long for the number of cylinders, as compared with other designs. In the late 1920s, you could buy cars with inline engines of up to 12 cylinders. Straight 8 engines were used until shortly after the Second World War, notably winning the first season of Formula One. Straight 8 engines have the advantage of smooth running, but the length of straight 8 engines carries design challenges involving harmonic effects on the crankshaft and the camshaft. Straight 6 engines keep the advantage of similar smooth running to 8s, but are obviously more compact and being shorter do not suffer the same disadvantages of design or packaging. Porsche used straight 4-cylinder engines in most of the transaxle models, namely the 924, 944 and 968, as well as the second generation Macan. The most frequently used design to achieve a more compact layout is a V design, so named because of the fact that when viewed from the front, most V engines resemble the letter V with 2 banks of cylinders. Vs are used for any number of cylinders from 2 upwards. A V8 engine is barely longer than an inline 4-cylinder, despite having, and you will struggle to believe this, twice as many cylinders. Narrow angle V engines do not have 2 separate banks of cylinders, but have all cylinders in one block. They also use a single head gasket. They're also known as VR engines, from the initials V and R, from the German words V-Motor for a V engine and Reihenmotor for an inline engine. So it's an inline V6. I remind you once again that a German joke is no laughing matter. 928s, Cayenne, Panamera, Macan, Carrera GT and 918 all use V engines of various configuration. V engines of up to 24 cylinders have been developed, most notably the Merlin engine, which powered the Spitfire and Hurricane aircraft in the Second World War. If you open out the V further, you get a flat arrangement, where cylinders on opposing banks are horizontally opposed to one another. 356s, 912s, 911s, 914s, Boxster and Cayman models use a Boxer layout, which is a version of flat engines. In a Boxer engine, each piston has its own crank pin, and pairs of pistons move opposite to each other. Think of a prize fighter punching his fists against each other. The alternative design for a flat engine has pairs of pistons sharing a crank pin so that they move in unison. Instead of being a Boxer engine, this is technically a 180-degree V engine. Where still more cylinders are needed in automotive applications, W engines have fairly recently been used in VW, Bentley and Bugatti cars. There are 2 basic ways to configure a W engine. One is to have 3 banks of cylinders, but to really do it, place a narrow V within a wide angle V and have 4 banks of cylinders, which is the approach VW, Bentley and Bugatti use. There is another rational way to design a multi-cylinder engine, and that's a radial engine, as used in many piston-engined aircraft. A radial engine is a good layout for an aircraft engine because it can be only 1 cylinder deep. The odd thing about a radial engine is that it does not have a crankshaft as we know it, Jim. Instead, there is 1 master rod and several slave connecting rods joined to a common crank. While a radial engine can be 1 cylinder deep, it is obviously much bigger around. Although it's a seemingly odd choice for an automotive application, there is a 356 currently running in Sydney powered by a 3-cylinder radial engine. From here on in, engine designs get really silly. If you combine two V engines, so that half the cylinders point upwards and half downwards, you get an X engine. Combine two flat engines while retaining separate crankshafts, and you get an H engine layout. Combine two straight engines, but without sharing a crankshaft, and you get a U engine, which was used in Suzuki motorbikes as recently as the 1980s. But if you want to see the hold my beer levels of crazy that engineers can come up with when given access to unlimited quantities of industrial strength party pharmaceuticals, check out the Napier Deltic engine. This was an 18-cylinder, opposed piston, valveless, supercharged, uniflow scavenged, 2-stroke diesel engine used in marine and locomotive applications. It's a lot easier to say than it is to wrap your head around it. The Deltic part of the name refers to the Greek letter delta, which resembles a triangle. Each side of the triangle is a cylinder, in which pairs of pistons move in opposite directions, so there is no cylinder head, and there are 3 crankshafts. And that's about as silly as we're going to get here. No need to talk of pistonless internal combustion engines. Thank you very much for watching.